to stimulate growth. But can the government help if recession does hit? Well, yes, says former CBO director in a new Washington Post op-ed writing, we have plenty of capacity in the federal budget to undertake vigorous counter-cyclical tax and spending policies when the next recession arrives. Joining us now is Douglas Elmendorf, the author of the piece, also Harvard Kennedy School Dean, former CBO director. So why did you write this piece right now?
I think it's important for people to understand what good economic analysis says about our policy options. Good analysis says, yes, we have very high government debt, and we'll have to do something about that at some point. But at the same time, if we hit a recession, we can shorten that recession, we can make it less severe by using fiscal policy, and we should do that.
What type of fiscal stimulus do you have in mind?
A combination of government spending increases and tax cuts can make sense. We used a particular combination in 2009. If we'd done more in that recession, it would have been shorter. More people would have kept their jobs or found jobs more quickly. We should do some combination of tax cuts and spending increases when we hit the next recession.
Doug, I suppose that you could talk about how the math works pretty well in terms of the government's borrowing capacity. Some are arguing the government's borrowing capacity does not really have an effective limit. On the other hand, there are the political realities, and people like to throw out numbers like $22 trillion in gross national debt as if that is an impediment. So is your message here that politicians should think differently about the debt burden and how the government services it?
Yes, I think that's right. There's a conventional wisdom that I've seen emerging in newspaper op-ed pieces and in analytic stories, a conventional wisdom that I think is not supported by the good economic analysis. So I want to bring the analysis to the forefront, and it has two numbers I think that are very important. One is the amount of debt outstanding. The other is, as you've just been reporting, interest rates are very low. People are quite eager to lend money to the federal government. And that changes the context of making decisions about fiscal policy. It doesn't change the fact that we ultimately will need to keep debt from just rising and rising as it is now. But it says that the urgency of addressing that problem is less than many of us, including I, had expected several years ago. That gives us a little more room, including room to fight recessions. And recessions are very costly for people's lives. We ought to fight them with whatever tools we have. And fiscal policy is one of those tools today.
Well, to your point, nobody seems particularly focused on deficits to begin with. I mean, we're running trillion-dollar deficits as it is.
That's right. And in fact, as I note in this piece that I wrote, a very substantial anti-recessionary policy would only cost about as much as our current annual borrowing. So that's not a good commentary about our current annual borrowing, but the wrong time to start worrying about federal deficits and debt is when we hit a recession. The right time to think about it is when times are good. But when times go bad, then we ought to use the fiscal tools that we have. And I worry in the things that I've been reading that people will then stand up and say, oh, no, we have to worry about our fiscal problems. That's exactly the wrong timing.